Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of BlackInk.tv. I'm your host, Tony Beaman. We have a very exciting show for you today, where our mission, once again, is to inspire the next generation of Black entrepreneurs to think bigger and go for it. Now, my next guest, Deronte Smith. He began his entrepreneur endeavors at the tender age of 10 years old, believe it or not, in rural Kentucky.
Yeah.
He also grew up writing stories, plays, poems, eventually winning competitions and winning a competition to produce for Disney. He has launched his own commercial video production where he's actually had his own feature film produced and pitched shows for Steve Harvey, Tyler Broadcasting, Perry Studios, to name a few, Netflix. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Deronte, I don't want to give away everything. Welcome to BlackInk.tv. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I apprate it, man.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a long journey, man. So you took them all the way back, but yeah.
Hey, man, I want to make sure I'm prepared because you have an amazing background. Tell us about where you grew up, man. Tell us a little about yourself.
So I'm from a little small town. It's called Campbellsville, Kentucky. Campbellsville is like literally right smack in the center of the state. Kentucky's best known for like Muhammad Ali, George Clooney, Johnny Depp, all those guys, right? And so for me, in my hometown, probably the biggest name is Clem Haskins. So Clem Haskins is actually like my second or third cousin. Clem was the coach for the Minnesota Gophers back in the day, right? And so he took them to a Final Four appearance and all this other stuff. So there is some celebrity back home. But for me, the thing was coming up, I didn't see people in the space that I'm in to mimic or to see as mentors as I was growing up, right? So for us back in those days, and we're talking about the 80s and 90s, I'm a 70s kid, right? So back in those days, most of the people that were, creative professionals were in Hollywood or they're, in New York or something like that. So that just seemed, pretty much unattainable. So as I grew, I come to learn that, I could be a positive influence on these kids, that I made it out, right? So I went to the University of Kentucky, got my degree, got a degree in creative writing. I was able to advance that to actually, set up a real career and forge a career path for myself that was atypical, And then when I had my first opportunity, I wrote a kid's book called The Fantastical Adventures of Sleepy Steve, right? Book came out in 2005. I'm gonna tell you a quick story about that. Okay. So I had this book. I did what are called query letters. So a query letter is when you query major publishers, right? So in other words, you're submitting to major publishers to get your book picked up. I had four major publishers to respond back. They were interested in the book, but the lead character is a Black kid, right? This is before you had a real, I guess you could say a real anchor of Black products and stories outside of your normal stuff, right? So what they thought was, Black kids only read stuff about slavery, basketball, gangs, all that stuff, right? The stereotypical stuff. So when I queried them, the response I got back was, we're interested, we like it, but you need to change the lead character to a white kid, right? I literally have this in writing. So I met a lady by the name of Zane. Zane is a real big, she's a real big publisher and big time author in what's called the urban fiction, right? So, or urban romance. And Zane actually took me under her wing, mentored me, helped me to create my own publishing company. She literally opened the door to Barnes and Nobles and Books a Millions and Borders, got me into those guys, into meetings with the executives who then in turn got my book into the bookstores. This is before Amazon, okay? I set up my own tour and went and toured around the country to prove the market for this book, right? Wow. So I don't know, roughly 200,000 units or so over roughly 2 to 3 years, right? And my point being is like, that's the kind of thing, unfortunately, that we have to do a lot of times to prove our value, to prove our worth, and prove our, our place in that realm. What I did was when I did my very first book signing. Now, mind you, in that time, I've toured, I don't know, probably 200 schools at least, right? But my very first book signing, my very first speaking engagement, I took back home to my elementary school and middle school. I took it back home and launched that whole thing there. And I let them know how big it was. There was a big write-up in the news, big thing on TV and radio. I did all these appearances, right? The very first Black person to come home and do something like that. Can you imagine the impact that had on those kids, especially the little Black kids, minority kids in the community that never saw anything like that, man?
That is incredible. That is unbelievable. What, if I could ask you, like, where does that just strong belief in yourself really come from? Like what motivated you, as you talked about growing up like you have and everything, like what and who was it? Where did it come from? Because I mean, if there was nobody there for you to look at and you became that for others, wow, I mean, you got me motivated.
So I would have to say, I've thought about that a few times, and I would have to say that motivation, the intrinsic motivation, probably came from my mother. So my mother, she was a pastor. She was also a school teacher, right? So she's a school teacher full time. She was a pastor full time. She had a church that she pastored that was roughly a 2.5, 3-hour drive one way, right? And we would drive there on a Wednesday night, on a Friday night, on a Sunday morning. Okay, so she's taking me and my sister on what is roughly a 4.5 or 5-hour round trip just to get to the service. We were Pentecostal, so these Pentecostal services run long, man. So we're in service for hours, right? So you got 3-hour service and then roughly a 3-hour round trip. So you're talking about 6 hours, right? And she still has to teach school, okay? So like I saw her drive and I saw her passion and her commitment to giving back, right? I think that was what was instilled within me to say, you know what? Life is more than just taking, man. It's also giving back, how to influence that next generation. And that's why I'm excited to be on your show because, everybody that's out here trying to make a positive impact on this world where you have so much negativity running amok, hey man, I can't do anything but tip my hat.
I'm honored. I'm honored, and like yourself, it's almost like you let go and you're being pulled and you just kind of go with it, And so my hat's off to you. I really, wow, we could talk all day, man. But my God, I want to hear more about your stuff. I mean, you do a podcast, you've been in the industry for a while. You've done a feature film. Where do we start, man? I mean, tell me about like your feature film that I saw that you took it to the Cannes Film Festival. I mean, what? So, okay, that was my very first feature that I wrote, directed, and produced. It's called Prosper. So Prosper, let me tell you the funniest thing about Prosper. Prosper is a really dark, it's a really, lack of better words, it's a dark horror film, right? What they call supernatural. They're all dark,
right? Yeah, they pretty much, yeah. But I'm gonna tell you what makes Prosper different, at least in my opinion, is the experience, right? I say Prosper is the experiential film, meaning that when you watch it, it has such an element of real world to it, right? Even though it's fiction, that it'll creep you out and it gets inside your mind, right? But let me tell you the reason why that is. So Prosper came about because I was doing meditation. I still meditate, but I was doing a different type of meditation called Kundalini, right? So Kundalini taps into your chakra, right? So 7 different chakra points inside your body and all this other stuff. So they warn you that you should do that with a practitioner, someone that understands it, someone that can guide you through this meditation, right? I did it on my own, just, looking up on YouTube and blah, blah. Next thing you know, I do this meditation, man, no joke. I get lost inside of my own mind. Okay. So I'm literally lost inside of my mind for like 7 hours. Okay. This is midday. I laid down to take what I thought was a nap and meditate for 30 minutes and couldn't come out of it. Okay. I was like almost comatose. Well, my wife at the time, she became worried after a few hours, right? And my sister's a pharmacist. And after a couple more hours, now they're really starting to get concerned. My sister drives up to my home, right? And just as they're on the phone with the paramedics, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Like my pulse was extremely low, right? I wasn't responsive. And so they were trying to find out what's going on. They were on the phone with the paramedics, and I actually came to myself, but it was because I was able to bring myself out of this, what they call a trance state, right? When I came out of it, what I realized was I had literally lived this movie. I saw it from start to finish. So I sat down and I wrote the script. Literally right at that moment, I sat down, wrote the script. About an hour later, I sat down to start writing it, and I wrote it over like 37 hours. Did not look, man. I didn't take a shower. I didn't eat. My wife she brought me food, left it at the door. Like, I mean, like I was that entrenched into writing the script. So much so that what I learned was I tapped into a spiritual place, right? I got this guy who came on board as a spiritual advisor. He's actually in the movie. He is an actual practicing Wiccan, right? He told me that the mantra that we were using inside of the movie for the seance, right, for the ritual, was so realistic that I was calling demon spirits into the real world. And I kid you, we had real live experiences making this movie that shook the entire cast and crew, man. I had crew members quit. I had cast members quit. I'm gonna kid you not, since the movie was made, I've had either 6 or 7 different actors, producers, even my wife died, passed away, gone, not here, bro. I'm not kidding you.
What?
I wish I were kidding you.
You are that much of a creative genius. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's wild. Man. It's wild. I mean, so what happened is we had so I took the movie to what's called the AFM, it's the American Film Market, right? I took the movie to the American Film Market, I think it's 2014. And I got interest from, I don't know, man, probably 25 markets or something like that. That's where you go and you sell your movie into these other markets. But the movie wasn't done, right? And then I got interest from Lionsgate. Lionsgate offered me, they offered me $1.6 million for the movie. It was called Sight Unseen. That means the movie wasn't done. They're only going off my package, which is, the trailer and all that stuff. I turned Lionsgate down. The reason why is because the collective total from the other markets was roughly about $5 million, right? So my thought was, why take $1.6 million when if I can be a little patient, I can get $5 million, right? What ended up happening was, to make a very long story short, we missed our delivery date. And part of that was because at the time I was going through reconstructive knee surgery. That led to me going into a divorce. That led to this, and this. And within all of about 3 months, I had just all of this major life happened stuff. Happened. And, we missed our window we overshot. We missed our window roughly about 6 weeks. Didn't matter, man. At that point, people were walking away from the deal. Fast forward, I met a distributor at the American Film Market who really liked it. And he's like, hey, man, I want to take this thing to the Cannes Film Market next year. Would you be open to it? I was like, yeah. So he took it over the Cannes. And that literally got everything going, man. So from there, I got a theatrical release in 7 states, in 37 cities. We were competing against the very first Annabelle movie. We outperformed Annabelle in every single movie theater we were in, right? Then went on to get onto Amazon Prime for a year or 2. That deal phased out, and then just last year, I got a new distribution deal that just kicked off in June. So we have now the movies available on all the streaming platforms and all that. So it's doing quite well.
Congratulations. That is an amazing accomplishment, an amazing story. And you've obviously, among many other things, many times have overcome a lot. That's the mark of a successful entrepreneur. Congratulations.
Yeah, I do, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, man. But, before we go, tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So I have a podcast called The Expert Process. So what The Expert Process is about is essentially I want to shorten the learning curve to getting to mastery, right? So, they say it takes 10,000 hours to get to mastery. 10,000 hours, anything gets you to a point of mastery and whatever that thing is. Well, what I do is I interview professionals in different aspects of the creative lane, right? And ask them for their tips, for their advice, for the resources that can help these folks that really want to, up their game in their careers. And in particular, we're talking about film. They really want to do that. They're able to, they're able to tap into these, into the minds of these folks that have been successful. It is also a vehicle that is used kind of as a marketing tool for the online masterclass that I have as well. So it's called the Expert Process. So what I tell folks is they go to the expertprocess.com. They can see, all about me. I have my bio up there, all this other stuff. And then they can learn more about, the whole the masterclass and what all that's about. But I'm gonna tell you honestly, Tony, one of the biggest things for me that I've learned over my 20 years in doing this is, as I said, it's giving back. It's not always about taking. It's not always about the money, right? It's also giving back. That was the reason why I created that platform. But what I've also found is it's given me a lot of leeway to help further other people's future, for their futures and their ambitions. So I've actually become now a coach, or what you would call an accountability partner for a lot of filmmakers, right? So they'll reach out to me through my website, and I'm able to counsel them, give them advice. Of course, there's a fee, but there are several that, in fact, there are 3 right now that I'm working with that we are getting their product placed on different platforms, right? And I'm actually able to help them get sponsor deals. Sponsor deals, that's big, man. It's not money. These guys did not have a means or resource or an idea how to get that money until, I bring this opportunity to the table, but I wouldn't have known about them if it weren't that, I had the wherewithal to put myself out.
Wow. Deronte, I could talk to you all day, man. There's so many things I want to talk to you about, but again, I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for being on our show today. That's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. Oh my gosh. Again, Deronte Smith, please, everybody be looking out for the most talented person that I've met, because I have never actually spoken with a filmmaker, and wow, it's an honor, But anyway, everybody, thanks again for joining us today on Black Ink. I'm going to put my LinkedIn profile link, hit me up. As always, think bigger and go for it. Thank you once again for our guest, and we'll see you next time on blackink.tv.